Priya Sharma had learned long ago that silence was the enemy of ambition. Growing up in a cramped apartment, where her mother worked double shifts at the hospital and her father drove taxis until midnight, she understood that opportunities were not given. They were seized with both hands and held tight against anyone who tried to take them away. The boardroom on the 38th floor of Sterling Enterprises smelled like expensive leather and barely concealed desperation. 20 senior analysts sat around the polished conference table, tablets glowing, fingers tapping nervously against notebooks. Priya had positioned herself near the center, close enough to be seen, but not so close as to seem presumptuous. 5 years of navigating corporate politics had taught her the geography of power. Alexander Sterling arrived exactly at 9. Not a minute early, not a second late. At 34, he had inherited control of the company after his parents died in a plane crash when he was just 26. The tragedy had transformed him from a promising young executive into something harder, colder. The financial press called him the Ice King, and watching him now, Priya understood why. His charcoal suit was immaculate. His dark hair was swept back from a face that might have been handsome if it ever showed warmth. His gray eyes scanned the room like he was calculating the value of everything in it, including the people. "The Meridian acquisition," he said, without greeting. "Present your analyses." One by one, the senior analysts delivered their assessments. Each presentation was polished, professional, and utterly wrong. Priya listened as her colleagues praised the deal's potential, citing projected revenues and market expansion. None of them had looked deeper. None of them had seen what she had found buried in 3 years of financial statements. When her turn came, Priya stood with her spine straight and her voice steady. "The Meridian acquisition will bankrupt this company within 4 years." The silence was immediate and absolute. Someone dropped a pen. It sounded like a gunshot. Alexander's eyes locked onto hers. "Explain." "Meridian's revenue projections are based on patents that expire in 18 months. Their largest client is currently in secret negotiations with a competitor, and their CFO has been quietly selling his personal stock for the past 6 months. Priya clicked to her slide showing the evidence. "This acquisition is not an opportunity. It is a trap designed to make someone else's problem become ours. You are accusing them of fraud. I am accusing them of creative accounting and strategic omission. The fraud accusation will come from the SEC in approximately 2 years, long after we have already absorbed their liabilities." A murmur rippled through the room. Alexander leaned forward, his expression unreadable, but intense. "You have 72 hours to substantiate every claim. If you are right, you will lead the team that redesigns our acquisition strategy. If you are wrong, your career at this company ends." Priya gathered her materials without letting her hands shake. "I will have documentation on your desk in 48. She made it to the elevator before her knees went weak. Her phone buzzed immediately with a text from Vanessa. That was either brilliant or career suicide. Possibly both. Priya leaned against the elevator wall and allowed herself one moment of terror before straightening her shoulders. She had 48 hours to save her career or destroy it. Either way, she would do it on her own terms. Priya delivered her report in 36 hours. Every document was verified, every accusation supported by evidence that left no room for doubt. Alexander canceled the Meridian acquisition the same afternoon, saving Sterling Enterprises from what would have been a catastrophic mistake, but their boardroom. Confrontation had already escaped into the world. Someone had recorded the exchange and posted it online with the caption, "Analyst destroys billionaire CEO with facts." Within days, it had been viewed millions of times. Financial news outlets ran stories about the fearless woman who challenged the Ice King. Social media could not decide if Priya was a hero or a troublemaker. Alexander summoned her to his office on a gray Tuesday morning. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline behind him like a kingdom awaiting conquest. He stood with his back to the door, hands clasped behind him. "My investors are concerned," he said without turning. "The board questions my judgment. The press portrays me as an arrogant fool who nearly destroyed his own company. I did not leak that video, I know." He finally faced her. "But the damage requires a solution. My team has proposed something unconventional. He handed her a document. Priya read it twice before the words made sense. You want me to pretend we are engaged? A carefully managed narrative? The woman who challenged me publicly becomes the woman I respect enough to marry. It humanizes me and elevates you. After 90 days, we separate amicably. You receive a promotion, a significant bonus, and your choice of projects going forward. Priya thought about her student loans, her mother's medical bills, the glass ceiling she had been fighting against for years. This is insane. This is strategy. She should have refused. Every instinct warned her against entangling her life with a man who calculated everything. But desperation made people do foolish things. And Priya was desperate in ways she never admitted aloud. Want full creative control over the acquisition restructuring project. Done. And when this ends, I want a recommendation that opens doors at any firm I choose. You will have it. Priya signed the contract that evening. Their first public appearance was scheduled for the weekend. A charity gala where photographers would capture their debut as a couple. The stylist sent 3 gowns. Priya chose emerald green, a color that made her brown skin glow and her dark eyes shine. When Alexander arrived to collect her, wearing a tuxedo that should have been illegal, she felt something flutter in her chest that she immediately suppressed. This was business, nothing more. But when he took her hand on the red carpet, when the cameras exploded around them, when he looked at her with practiced adoration that felt disturbingly convincing, Priya wondered if she had underestimated exactly what she had agreed to. How did you two meet? A reporter called out. She told me I was wrong, Alexander replied smoothly. I found it irresistible. The crowd laughed. Priya smiled for the cameras, while her heart raced with something that felt dangerously like anticipation. 89 days remained on their contract. She told herself she could survive anything for 89 days. She had no idea how wrong she was. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Priya stopped being able to identify where. Performance ended and reality began. Their public appearances had become routine. Dinners with investors, charity events, carefully staged photographs that flooded social media with evidence of their perfect romance. Priya played her role flawlessly, laughing at appropriate moments, touching Alexander's arm when cameras pointed their direction, telling rehearsed stories about their fictional courtship. But it was the private moments that confused her. Late nights at his penthouse reviewing acquisition strategies that turned into conversations about childhood, dreams, and abandoned ambitions. The way Alexander listened when she talked, really listened, as if her words mattered more than quarterly reports. The gentle way he tucked her hair behind her ear when they were alone. A gesture no camera would ever capture. You were different than I expected, she admitted one evening on his terrace. The city glittering beneath them like scattered diamonds. Disappointing? Surprising. The Ice King reputation suggested someone incapable of warmth. Alexander's jaw tightened. That reputation was earned. After my parents died, I built walls high enough that nothing could hurt me again. Emotions were inefficient. Vulnerability was weakness. I became exactly what the company needed me to be. And what did you need? He looked at her with an intensity that stole her breath. I did not allow myself to ask that question. Until recently, the weekend at the Sterling family estate changed everything. Alexander's grandmother, Alina, was 78 years old, with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She welcomed Priya warmly, but studied her with the precision of someone who had spent decades reading people. You care about my grandson, Alina said, during a quiet moment in the garden? That much is real, whatever else might be performance. Priya hesitated. The situation is complicated. Love usually is. Lena smiled knowingly. Alexander has been frozen since his parents died. You are the first person I have seen begin to thaw him. Do not let fear prevent you from discovering what that means. That night, Alexander found Priya on the balcony outside her guest room. Moonlight silvered his features, softening the sharp edges she had once found so intimidating. My grandmother likes you. She sees too much. She sees truth. He stepped closer. Priya, I need to tell you something. Alexander stopped being performance for me weeks ago. When I hold your hand, I am not thinking about cameras. When I kiss you for photographs, I wish they would last longer. I am falling for you, and I do not know how to stop." Priya's heart hammered against her ribs. Every rational thought screamed warnings about contracts and complications and the impossibility of trusting feelings born from fiction. But when Alexander kissed her, soft and questioning, and nothing like their staged embraces, rationality dissolved completely. "This is dangerous," she whispered against his lips. "I know. We could ruin everything. We could finally have something real." She kissed him again, deeper this time, and let herself fall into the unknown. 62 days remained on their contract, but something had shifted irrevocably, and there was no going back. The exposure came on a Wednesday morning. Priya arrived at work to find her inbox flooded with messages and her phone exploding with notifications. Someone had leaked their contract to a journalist. Every clause, every negotiated term, every damning piece of evidence that their romance was manufactured for public consumption. The article was devastating. Screenshots of the contract accompanied analysis that painted them both as manipulative frauds. Alexander was portrayed as a desperate billionaire buying himself a fake relationship. Priya was labeled a gold digger who traded her dignity for career advancement. Comment sections overflowed with cruelty. Social media dissected every public appearance, reinterpreting their smiles as performances, their touches as calculated moves in a cynical game. Priya sat in Alexander's office watching the destruction unfold across multiple screens. His face was pale, jaw clenched tight enough to shatter. "Who leaked it?" "Robert." Alexander's voice was dangerously quiet. "My uncle. He has wanted control of the company for years. This gives the board ammunition to question my leadership. Can we deny it? The documents are authentic. Denial only makes us look more dishonest." Priya felt tears threatening, but refused to let them fall. "Then it is over. Everything we built, real or fake, all of it destroyed." Alexander crossed to her, taking her hands with desperate urgency. "The arrangement is over, but what grew between us does not have to be. Priya, I love you. Not for cameras or contracts or public perception. I love you because you challenge me and infuriate me and make me want to be someone worthy of you." "How can you be certain?" she demanded, voice breaking. "How can either of us know what is real when everything started as a lie? Because I have never been good at pretending. Because every moment alone with you has been the most honest part of my life in years. Because I would rather lose everything else than lose you." The board meeting that afternoon was brutal. Robert Sterling led the charge, demanding Alexander's resignation for conduct unbecoming of a CEO. Investors threatened to pull funding. The company's stock continued falling. Alexander sat through the accusations with surprising calm. When given the opportunity to respond, he stood and addressed the room with quiet conviction. "I made a mistake. I prioritized image over integrity, and that decision has consequences I accept fully. But the woman I entered this arrangement with has become the woman I love genuinely. I will not apologize for that. And I will not pretend otherwise to satisfy people who have never taken a personal risk in their lives." He walked out of the meeting without waiting for their verdict. Priya met him in the hallway. "What happens now?" "Now we decide what matters more, their approval or our truth." The press conference was scheduled for Friday morning. By Thursday night, speculation had reached fever pitch. Would Alexander resign? Would Priya disappear into professional obscurity? Was their relationship entirely fabricated, or had something real emerged from the deception? Priya stood backstage at Sterling Enterprises, wearing a simple blue dress that felt like armor. Her hands trembled until Alexander took one of them, his grip steady and warm. "We do not have to do this," he said quietly. "We could release a statement. Let the lawyers handle everything. Avoid the spectacle entirely. Spend the rest of our lives wondering what might have happened if we had been brave enough to tell the truth." Priya shook her head. "I have spent too many years being careful, being strategic, being whatever other people needed me to be. For once, I want to be honest, whatever the consequences." Alexander lifted her hand to his lips. Together, then together. They walked out, two blinding camera flashes in a room packed with journalists hungry for scandal. Alexander stepped to the microphone while Priya stood beside him, their fingers intertwined. "Thank you for coming," Alexander began. "I am going to tell you a true story. It starts with deception and ends somewhere I never expected." He explained everything. The viral video, the PR crisis, the contract designed to reshape public narrative. He admitted the calculation behind it, the cynicism that had driven them both to agree. He was unflinchingly honest about beginning as a performance. But somewhere in those staged photographs and rehearsed conversations, something real happened. Priya Sharma is brilliant and fearless and completely unwilling to let me hide behind my reputation. She challenges everything I believe about myself and makes me want to be better. I fell in love with her, and that was never part of any contract. He stepped back, and Priya moved to the microphone. Her voice was steady, despite her racing heart. "I agreed to this arrangement because I was tired of being overlooked. I wanted recognition for my work, for my mind, for everything I had sacrificed to build a career in an industry that constantly questioned whether I belonged. But what I found was something I never anticipated. A man who listened when I talked, a partner who respected my ambition instead of fearing it, a love that grew in the most unlikely circumstances." She paused, looking at Alexander with all the feelings she had been afraid to show. "Our relationship began as a lie, but it became the most honest thing in my life. Whatever happens next, professionally or publicly, we face it together. That is the only truth that matters." The questions came rapid fire. Accusations, demands for clarification, attempts to provoke dramatic responses. Alexander and Priya answered them calmly, honestly, without defensive deflection. When it was finally over, they walked out hand in hand. The future remained uncertain. The board might still demand Alexander's removal. Priya's reputation would take years to rebuild. The internet would continue dissecting their every move, but standing in the elevator as it descended, Priya felt something she had not experienced in years: peace. "What now?" Alexander asked. "We figure out what a real relationship looks like, without contracts or cameras or predetermined endings." He pulled her close, kissing her forehead with infinite tenderness. "I have absolutely no idea how to do that. Neither do I." Priya smiled against his chest. "But I think that is the point." The doors opened onto an uncertain world. They stepped into it together, finally free to discover what they could become when performance ended and truth began.